Hey guys, how's it going? Tom Duppstadt here. So today I thought I'd keep it a little shorter, a little lighter maybe. But this one's going to be about the law of one and some of my personal experiences of connection, some more unusual moments of connection. So to get into it, I have to have a disclaimer here where, these are, all these words are my own opinion and interpretation in my view in regards to the law of one. I would encourage everyone to read the books on their own, which I will put a link down there, and in an effort to receive the information free of any distortions that I may unintentionally add here. So to give you a little background about Ra, what he talks about in the law of one, he says, there is a connection to all life. Every consciousness, every part of the illusion, we'll talk more about the illusion, what that is, including what we may consider matter. It's an idea of what comes from one consciousness. A hierarchy of individualized consciousness that converge into one. Each individualized consciousness is on a path of experience. Some are not aware of the path because of this unknowing, this veil of forgetting that I talked about. Some will not ascend in consciousness and remain in a seemingly endless loop of incarnations. He describes that as sleep. He says some souls just want to sleep, and they'll just, it won't evolve. And he says it's fine. We just try to make them comfortable. And I always think of that as maybe someone that's really rich and they don't really have any struggles in life. Like everything's like really good for them, I often think that maybe some of those are souls that just want to sleep. They don't want to expand their consciousness. Anyway, so talking about densities, I went through this before and some of the others, but just for completeness here in explaining, there are three densities, which I'll discuss for these experiences I had with connection. Ra describes the first density as rock and water. Second density are plants, and then animals and minerals. Third density is us. Third density are self-aware beings, including humans and ETs alike. These three densities reside in the material world, so therefore we are and can interact with them. Within each density, there are 7 octaves. So within each of those octaves are 7 more octaves, and so on to infinity. So the first density of a rock and water are influenced through transformation by wind and fire. So all densities are influenced and transformed by their own or other densities. So a rock, for example, may be transformed by wind, fire, other rock and water, and also other density entities, including plants, animals, and people, because we can influence them as well. So these things, they interact, shape, and transform the rock. The same with water. Water progressing through inner octaves would be like a puddle to a pond, a stream, to a lake, a river, or an ocean, with experiences from becoming rain, a bubble, or being drunk by animals, experiences in shaping the rock, or a catalyst in the life and death of other things. That experience, I think, would have a tremendous effect on an entity. Trying to figure out like what just happened here. Right? I love this knowing. I have come to understand the universe. It's beautiful, it's elegant, it's intelligent. To live by law of one is definitely humbling. To realize that we all are one. I find it particularly fascinating that by our interaction we may influence the development of a life force. Now, of course, this would be the same with having a child. But in everything that we interact with, we're having an effect on their evolution. What if you have a garden and you're working that garden, right? You're helping those plants to evolve because you're giving them special interaction that they wouldn't otherwise have had. I love that. That's awesome. And how wonderful and powerful it is. It's changed how I see all living things and how I interact with them. So here's some of the classics, and this is one of my favorites, about the bubble. I talked about this in one of the other ones, and this tripped me out. Okay, so what happened was I was doing dishes, was doing dishes like over here, right? And I looked down, and there at my belly button, right, there was a bubble. It was the only bubble that I recall having seen, and it was like super tiny, just a teeny tiny bubble. And I was wearing a shirt. Actually, I think I was wearing the same shirt. Oh shit! Synchronicity. Sorry, I got sidetracked. So I was wearing a shirt, and I watched the bubble as it came closer, and I was anticipating it popping against my shirt. It moved to about as close as you can to the edge of my shirt. You know, if you look from the side, you know, it's just so close. And it started at my belly button. It came up, and then it just started moving up. So it moved without any sway or jitter. So it wasn't moving around. It just went. It came straight to me and went straight up. It started moving diagonally upward along my shirt, right? It started moving up here, below my chest, under my arm. So I was just kind of sitting here, and then I just watched it go like this, and then it disappeared. And I was like, all right, I was just tripped out that it didn't pop, that it just kind of moved along the contour and then just disappeared. So I resumed doing the dishes, and I began reflecting on the law of one. This is right after I just think I was in the middle of reading these books and learning about these connections. And I started to reflect on law of one, where Raw described that the wind transforms the water. I thought about the water experiencing itself as a bubble, being lifted in the air in flight. I thought this was like an extreme sport for a water drop. Yeah. Can you imagine being water to be like you're in a collective, right? Because you're merged in this body of water, a single entity, and then you're unaware of any individualization. You see yourself as this one entity, and it's ironically the opposite of our experience, right? We feel like individuals unaware of our collective consciousness. This is good shit. Then suddenly, from this collective entity, this drop emerged as an individual into an alien form, as a bubble. And if that wasn't a shocking birth in and of itself, it suddenly takes flight, harnessed by the wind, and breaks all the laws of being that it has ever known. Right? And I actually had these thoughts. I was actually having these thoughts while I was doing the dishes after I'd seen that bubble. And I was like, what an exciting moment that moment must have been for that bubble. Well, after being engaged in that entire thought, I had that entire thought, and I completed the dishes, right? So I was over here and I completed the dishes, and I turned 90 degrees in my left, just like this, and then I froze, and I saw the same bubble again, the same place that my belly button. It was the same size as the other one, so to me it was like it was the same bubble, right? And it approached me again, same way it had earlier. And once again I thought like, well, it's gonna pop once it hits my shirt. And once again it got as close as it could against my shirt and began to climb up my chest. And again it moved smooth as silk. There's no jittering. It was just like moving. And it climbed up my chest to about my heart. It was moving up like this, and it moved kind of over the shoulder, and I kind of lost view like back here. And after that happened, I laughed out loud. I laughed out loud, and I was like, did I just have a moment with a bubble? And I never saw that bubble pop. I didn't see it again. But as Raw would describe, that interactions influence the movement of consciousness. I couldn't help but wonder if that experience had some effect on the consciousness of that water drop. Of course, we could say it was just a bubble, but isn't it amazing what a little perspective can do to enhance the reality of life? I could not help but wonder if this was a deliberate teaching moment for me. And looking back now, I definitely think so. I definitely think that was an experience offered to me. Whether deliberate or not, and it seems funny, but I'll never forget that bubble and the lesson that I learned from. And yeah, that's pretty cool, right? Amazing what a perspective is, you know, when you look at things so differently. You really look at things differently. All right, so here's another one about nature. So I was reading this book here, How to Meet and Work with Spirit Guides by Ted Andrews, and this is a good book. He's got a bunch of little books, and the information's really good. And I was able to tie a lot of these in with Law of One as well, and exactly here in what I'm describing. So in that book, he talks about nature spirits. He describes that there are unseen entities residing in nature, in the bushes, in the trees. He would plan to clean up, his garden, clean up the brush for landscaping or trim trees, but he would warn them ahead of time of what he was about to do. And he would also be asking for a sign if what he was about to do would be inappropriate so that he might reconsider. But I love this perspective. Whether I believe in such entities or not, who knows? But it certainly does not hurt to have such a perspective. At the time of writing, maybe I was still questioning stuff like that. And now, I can believe that there are other things in there. I think this was really good advice. But in how it relates to the Law of One, it gives me pause to offer the same respect to plants and nature as Andrew describes. Because he's described particular times when he would clear out bunch of plants, and then he would try to grow new plants there. But after he took the other plants, nothing would grow there. And the way he described it is those entities that were there, they were caring for the plants. And he said once he cleared it out, those entities removed themselves, and so nothing can grow in that area. So in doing simple landscape, approaching plants by extending your intention through your heart chakra, my intentions are to enhance the beauty to be appreciated here, provide you with water and nourishment, clearing the weeds to provide them with protection and room to grow. So if you're doing some major landscape renovation, particularly with trees, you try to relocate them. Reflect if there are any signs that a particular tree should remain before doing the work. Because a tree in particular, those are the higher echelon of the second density as far as plants are concerned. So it's just something to reflect on. So this was interesting, the story about the iris. I've made it more of a point to pay closer attention to nature, looking closer at the animals, the trees, and the flowers and plants, looking for anything that stands out, looking for anomalies and things like that. So one morning I was walking around, looking at the flowers, and I noticed that these two irises were twirled around each other, and it looked like they were holding hands. What made this more interesting is that this was at the wilting stage of the flowers. So the flowers sat about 2 inches apart from one another. It was about 2 inches like that. But it seemed like they were actually reaching out to each other to intertwine. I was curious to see after their passing if these stalks would somehow still show some sort of favor to one another. Would they still lean towards each other, or maybe another part of the plant, or looking for anomalies like that. However, that wasn't the case. It still give you like, I wonder. You never know, right? So, but could it be that these flowers who seem to hold hands as they pass experience some sort of connection in the brief life together? I also wonder if the plants itself would be considered like the higher self, and then the flowers like individualized consciousness from the rest of the plant. It's like us, right? So if you look at the plant as the creator, and the flowers are us, and these flowers die off, it's like us, and bloom a new flower. Could that be like little reincarnations, right? And then the information that they experienced in their short lifetime, particularly with an iris, it's just like one day. The short incarnation, but then reincarnating over and over, and then when they pass, their experiences are absorbed into the greater plant, the bigger plant. Wow. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I think about. Crazy, I know. This is how I think. And to me it makes sense. It really does make sense. We often see in nature, there's macro and micro reflections of each other. Kind of those nested Russian dolls, Amazing. Okay. So next one, this was with a dog. So I had been staying with my aunt at this time, and they have a dog named Cody. He's now 14 years old, I think. He's an old dog, whom I never really gave much attention to other than the occasional petting as he passed by. He has various warts on his skin, so it, kind of creeps you out a little bit to pet him. He also never seemed to give me any extended attention as well. I would also get agitated with him as he often got in the way. He's just old and clumsy and doesn't really know what he's doing. And I just never really gave the dog much thought. Well, in recent months, Cody's gait had become unstable. He's walking as if he's drunk and often losing balance. Before that, he had began having diarrhea, and he was growing increasingly weak and having difficulties moving around. About 3 days, he didn't get up at all. He just laid there. So when you'd visit him, he would not even raise his head to look at you. He would just, look at you with his eyes, and he would just look back, just lost in the gaze. It was really sad. The family had decided to put him down. It was going to occur in a couple days. And at this point, I felt really sorry for Cody and the misery he seemed to be enduring. I felt bad also for the way I seemed to disregard him before, and he needed some TLC, and I wanted to provide that. So as Cody laid there, he didn't raise his head, but his eyes looked up at me. I sat on the floor, he was on the couch, and put his head in my hands, and I stroked his fur along his face and his head, and I put my forehead against his, and then I centered my mind. I focused on my heart chakra, and I tried to fill it with emotions of love and healing and light, and I tried to inspire feelings of intention towards caring, compassion, encouragement, strength. And I imagine projecting those emotions and those intention from my heart to his. And I did this for several minutes as I sat with him and I stroked his head. And I did this for those 2 days. And that second day was the day that he was going to be put down. And on that day, he found the courage to get up on his own and to go outside. And as a result, they decided not to go through with it and see if he might recover. And he since recovered, going out to bark at nothing in the yard. He still wobbles at his gait, but he grows stronger, and that was encouraging. I don't pretend, that I had a hand in his recovery, and that's not really the reason why I tell the story. But the reason I tell the story, not about healing, but about connection. Because Cody would, since that day, Cody would come up to me, and he would stare at me, and he would rest his head in my lap. And as he does this, I would center my mind and extend compassion and love to him, as I did on those days when he was lying there. And I sincerely believe that in those moments with him, he and I made a connection. And before this, he never made such gestures to me, and never, paid me any mind. I never really paid him any mind. And I had been there for a long time already, so it's not like, still trying to get to know me. No, I've been there for a while. A few times he would sit in front of me and raise his paw to me as it, like he wants me to shake it, but he can barely hold his balance. So he's like falling over, trying to give me his paw. Yeah, there was some sort of connection there. Yeah. To conclude, so Ross stated that the ascension of the second density beings are greatly accelerated by their interactions in their roles as pets. They learn to individualize themselves through interactions. I find this beautiful, and more importantly, a responsibility. For aren't we all one consciousness? So to help another is to help ourselves. To help others is to help all. Not just as people, but all life as we know it. Yeah, that's a powerful thing. So I hope you reflect on that. I hope you see those connections and look for those connections. They could just be these little things that seems benign or it doesn't seem like anything, but you think about it, like, holy shit, that could have been something. Fascinating. Man, good stuff. Good stuff. Anyway, help me out, guys. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave some comments with your life if there's a particular subject that you want me to expand on. I definitely have no shortage of subjects to talk about. I think the next one coming up is going to be about past life regression, my own past life regression. Yeah, and some of this amazing stuff that I've been reading. As they say, love and light, namaste, all that good stuff. You guys have a good day. Peace out.